Hey, what's up guys, Red Bishop here and welcome back to my channel. Today we have something a little different. I'm going to do my first ever video review. This video review, as you can see from the title and from the video itself, is for Crysis 3, the newly released first-person shooter from Crytek. This is supposedly supposed to be the end of the trilogy for Prophet, who is the main character in the Crysis games, not counting Crysis Warhead, where you do play as a different character. But let's just jump right into it with the video review because it's only about a 9-minute video. When it comes to, we'll start off with single player first. When it comes to the single player, they did a great job with certain aspects of it. The overall look of the game is obviously with their getting CryEngine 3 with Crysis 3, and Crytek really did an outstanding job with the visuals. The game, I think, looks better than Crysis 2. Now, this is the Xbox 360 version, so of course this game will look much better on a PC, but if most people don't have the money or don't want to go out and spend that much money on, a high-end, PC when they have these consoles that, it doesn't look as great on the PC, but it looks good enough. But when it comes to the overall, story of the game, they try to tie up all the ends from the series with this one, since it's supposed to be the end of Prophet. And they do an alright job with that. I'm not going to spoil anything here, so don't worry about that. But you come across the character Psycho, who you play in Crysis Warhead. You come across him very early on in the game. Actually, I think you're with him for a good chunk of the game. There are times where you break off from him, and there are times where you meet up and you go together. But when they tie up the loose ends and try to end the story in a good spot, they miss a few things here and there, and it's just difficult to talk about without actually trying to spoil it. But once you play the single player, you'll know what I mean. They do a good job of ending Prophet's arc in the series, but they don't do a good job of ending the other characters' arc that are in this game. And that's something that kind of irks me. Like you end one character well, within the other two characters, you kind of just let them just go away and float by like a cliche. And it's something that kind of bothered me. And when it comes to the length of the single player, if you're somebody who just wants to rent the game, by all means you can do that with this. This game will take you about 5 to 6 hours to complete on normal. If you decide to start it on a higher difficulty, it will obviously take you a little longer. And if you decide to play it on easy, it might take you less amount of time than that. So keep that in mind. It is about a 5 to 6 hour campaign, which is significantly shorter than Crysis 2's campaign. But by today's standards, and I'm not no way of saying this is great, 5 to 6 hours is actually pretty long for a first-person shooter. Because like most, the Call of Duty campaigns and stories are usually about 4 hours. So it's not a great length, but I think they do a good enough job with what they have, 5 to 6 hours, to make it an enjoyable experience while you're playing it. And when it comes to that, their pacing for the missions and all that they're laid out pretty well. You kind of have to be more methodical. This is not your run and gun Call of Duty game, even though you're in a nano suit and you're kind of a pseudo superhero. You can't just run through guns ablazing and expect to win, because there are usually like right now there are a ton of enemies on the screen waiting to looking for you. And the AI does do a good job. Once they see you, they will start shooting you, and you have a chance of not surviving. So they do a very good job with the AI. The AI is, although not the best, they do a good enough job that when they see you, they will gun you down in a heartbeat. And so I like that. And when it comes to other gameplay mechanics, I think you see it a few times in this video. There's a hacking minigame that you can hack turrets, you can hack, lasers, to where if other people step through them, it kills them. There are mines throughout the game that you can hack as well. And it doesn't add a whole lot to the game, because there are times if you're not invisible, you can die while hacking. You can't use your suit powers while hacking. You actually have to wait until you're done before you can use the suit powers. But it's something that's a little different. It's not, like I said, something that's going to make or break a game, but it's something that I think people will find that's a little different from the other first-person shooters. You don't have hacking too much in the first-person shooters, and even though it's a very simple hacking minigame. And the Predator bow, which you see me using a lot in this video, is something I really enjoy using. It's what I use as my main weapon throughout. When I looked up my stats after beating the campaign, that was my most used weapon. It's something that it feels great. Like I'm glad they added that in to the single player, and I'll get to the why it's in the multiplayer as well, and I'll get to why I don't enjoy it in the multiplayer here in a second. But it feels good. It feels better than basically any other weapons. None of the weapons to me felt great. They felt like they didn't have a ton of power, which is odd because you figured, hey, I'm using, I'm this big nano suit, superhero guy kind of. These guns should be way powerful, and they're kind of not. Like the Predator Bow is actually the most powerful weapon you'll come across throughout the whole game. And yeah, that's about it for the single player. I didn't want to. I'm going to spend a little time with the multiplayer, but not a ton talking about it. But yeah, the single player is great for what it is. They do a good job of tying up Prophet's arc, but they don't do a good enough job tying up anybody else's. And it's a good length. It's 5 to 6, not a good length. I guess good is depending on what you think of game lengths nowadays. For a first-person shooter, it's a good length, 5 to 6 hours. It's not gonna take you an insane amount of time to beat it. It's not gonna take you a short amount of time to beat it. And depending on how you play it, if you play it a lot more methodical than I did, it'll take you way longer to beat it. So, but in this last about 2.5 minutes, I'll discuss the multiplayer briefly. The multiplayer is really missed in this game. Like it's more missed than hit. The thing that really bothers me about the multiplayer are the Predator Bow and the Invisibility Cloak. The Invisibility Cloak mixed with the Predator Bow, it's almost impossible to play the game, especially in Team Deathmatch, because people will literally just use that combination, and that's it. That's all they do. It's really difficult to see. It's easy to see them when you're up close, but if they're far back with the Predator Bow and just trying to snipe you, it's really annoying, really aggravating, and it's something that I think really breaks the game. It's not balanced well. And when it comes to the actual objective-based game modes, those are the best modes in the game because it requires you to actually not sit in a corner like Team Deathmatch and not sit in one area. It requires you to go out, go to the objectives, and actually play the game. If you want to play the game that way, that's fine. But I think that's something that the multiplayer is lacking, is a good balance. It's just not good. And also when it comes to the multiplayer's visuals, there's no multiplayer footage in this video. I just want to kind of focus on the single player because that's the majority of the time I'm spent talking about that. The multiplayer does not look as great as a single player, and that's kind of, we expect that. We don't expect the multiplayer to look as great because you have sometimes 12 to 18 people playing a multiplayer game. You have to get textures to load in. It's obviously not going to look as great. But I'm kind of disappointed with CryEngine 3 and Crytek with their gorgeous visuals in the single player. How the multiplayer is lacking a little bit. The texture pop-ins online are really, they really do happen a lot, and it gets it's an annoyance. The multiplayer is more an annoyance than anything. Like certain people will like it. If you enjoyed the multiplayer in Crysis 2, you'll enjoy the multiplayer in Crysis 3 probably. But remember that Invisibility Cloak plus that Predator Bow, which the Predator Bow was not in, I believe, Crysis 2. If it was, please correct me. It's going to annoy you. It's going to get on your nerves because there's no real way to combat it. Because you have to try to get in close to kill them because the weapons, like I mentioned in the single player, they're the same in the multiplayer. They're not powerful. They're not all that powerful. It takes bullets. And the multiplayer it could have been great. The multiplayer beta had its moments. But I think it's because the beta had those objective-based modes. If you play objective-based modes in Crysis 3 multiplayer, you'll have a way better time than if you play Team Deathmatch or Deathmatch. So that's it for my video review. I do not give scores in my reviews, but I will say this. If you're buying it for multiplayer, I would say don't buy it. If you're buying it for single player, I would say actually rent it for single player. It's not a great game, but it's also not a bad game. It's a middle-of-the-road first-person shooter with some interesting aspects of single player with the Predator Bow. And with that, I hope you enjoyed the video review, and thanks.